Hey everybody, you are listening to Drum Chats. My name's Travis, and I have a super special guest with us today. We've got Aaron Gillespie from Underoath on with us. Aaron, how are you doing, man?
Fantastic. Just a nice, normal evening. So, yeah, man, I got no complaints, really.
Right on, man. So let's get right down to the beginning. What got you playing drums? How did you start? And I mean, it's a long road, but how did you get to where you are right now?
I don't really know. In terms of the nucleus of it all, where it started. My mom has this photo. I turned 35 last week, and
Nice.
My mom has this photo when I was 3. She's holding me over a birthday cake, like your typical, 80s photo, kind of yellowed photo. And it was 86 was the year at the bottom of the photo, and there's drums painted on the cake, kind of crude looking drum set, grocery store lady painted on there or whatever. And she said it's all I ever cared about.
Right on.
And no one knows why, really. And my mom traveled and sang in this Christian country band, and my cousin was the drummer. So my earliest memories are him kind of showing me little things here and there,
Okay.
He's about 15 years older than me, so he was 18, 19 when they started, and I was a child. So that's the earliest thing I can remember.
Yeah.
And then, my earliest memories of playing were probably 7 or 8, playing in church, on a Sunday morning. And then we started Underoath when I was 16, so I've only ever really been in one band. I did a stint, when I quit Underoath, I did a stint playing drums for Paramore as a high-run guy for about 4 years.
Yeah.
That's the only other band I've ever been in. So I've been in the same band most of my life, which is it's crazy. I've kind of been in Underoath longer than I haven't. So
Yeah.
it's a weird thing to say out loud sometimes. But yeah, as far as the beginning of me playing drums, I don't really know.
Okay. It's just kind of happened.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, man. Well, before we get into your kit setup, how do you, let's talk about Underoath's, exit and then re-entry, coming out of where y'all were as a band, as y'all sound, as even for you as a drummer, into what you guys are playing now. I love the new record, by the way. It sounds
Thank you.
So killer. I love kind of the new direction you guys have taken, but still maintained y'all's taste. But what was that like for you? If there was any defining moment, what was that like for you coming from, y'all's previous records and sound to what it is now as far as your playing goes?
I feel like you're playing it's weird because when you're a full-time band or you're a full-time musician in any respect, it doesn't matter if you're a drummer or whatever, I feel like your playing grows more from night to night than it does in the studio.
Yeah.
I think after you make a couple of records and you learn that you suck at drums and you can't keep time, and you learn all those hard lessons that we learn in the studio on the first records we make. Once you learn those lessons,
right,
your playing grows more on a day-to-day basis than it does over a 6-week period in a record.
Yeah.
I think a lot of guys these days with the technology that we have and the fact that we're able to edit people to the wall to where everyone's a good drummer, right?
Right.
My son can go play the drums in the studio now.
Yeah.
Those are the facts.
Yeah.
And I think that drummers play on records and it gets edited to the wall and then they get it back and they're like, I'm great. What you really realize through making a record is if you do it the right way, you realize you're not great, but then you grow more on a day-to-day basis as a live player. That's when you grow. That's when the stuff really happens. So for me, with the kind of the morphing of Underoath in the past 15 years, is we've really just made the music we wanted to make.
Yeah.
And with this new record, it sounds so different because it's been 8 years since we made a record.
Right.
So it's not going to sound the same. We're all in our mid-30s. It's I don't want to make Define the Great Line a second time, and I don't think anyone really deserves to hear it a second time. I think that people that support us and like our band deserve something better. They deserve something different. They deserve a fresh take. So as far as my playing on the record goes, it's just who I am at 35 as opposed to who I was at 25,
Definitely. Yeah. I can see that. I mean, like the natural evolution of your age. And I mean, like anybody, you're still learning how to play drums through that period.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't think you ever stop playing or stop learning. With that too, let's get into your kit breakdown, because one of the biggest things that DrumChats is about is getting the different takes on people's rigs. I personally, one of the kits that I play for a church here in Austin, and we actually have the bright orange Aaron Gillespie Truth signature kit on our stage.
Okay,
and
cool.
It's a really cool kit, and all of our drummers there have switched it around and stuff. And from what I've seen, your kit has changed a little bit. So what are you playing with right now? Like, what are your shell sizes? What heads are you using? What cymbals are you playing now? Break down your rig for us, man.
I, like anybody else, I guess, I don't know. I feel like a lot of drummers in the modern space, like these days, it sounds weird, but they really focus on setup. You know, in terms of like, I saw a picture the other day of some guy set up and all of his drums were tilted all these crazy directions. And, you know, I'm like, bro, that's not comfortable. You know, it's not. I can't remember who it was. It wasn't like a famous drummer or anything, but it was like, I was like, dude, you can't like that.
Yeah.
You know, like, I feel like a lot of drummers now, more than ever, are setting up drums in ways that just make people go, what is that? As opposed to like, this is functional.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, so I've really tried over the years, and I've only ever played for 2 companies. I was with Truth for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then about 5 years ago, I switched to Gretsch.
Gretsch, yeah.
And the reason for the change is I just really love classic things. And with the custom companies, I just felt like I was kind of not really using them to their full extent. You know, like I don't want a drum set with a Marvel character on it. So it was like I kept getting increasingly more simple things.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I would go make records, I would rent like Luddies and Gretsch kits trying to make things sound woody and classic. So
of course,
I decided it was time to just make a change, and that's no slight on anyone. But anyways, for me, the evolution of my setup has always just been what sounds great and what is comfortable.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm kind of a bombastic player, so everything's kind of spread out a little bit. And the reason it's like that is because the way that I swing my arms, like I play with all arms. I've always been like that. I don't do, I don't play with my gear very close. So right now I've got the USA Custom Gretsch concert tom kit. Actually, it's the kick drum has a reso head on it, but it's a 12 by 24. And I'm kind of a pawn shop digger.
Nice.
I love like really old, you know, shitty drums.
Yeah.
So a lot of the old like leady drums and stuff that you find that's really just ruined that I work on in my garage, like a lot of those drums have really, really thin kick drums.
Right.
So I kind of, from pawn shop digging, I got really into like a really thin kick drum. So I play a 12 by 24 right now, and I have a 12 by 22 as well, but I haven't been using it because it had like a rail mount on it, and Spencer stood on it and cracked it.
Oh, come on.
Which I'm kind of upset about, but you know, that's where you pay to play, right?
Right.
And then 9 by 13, 16 by 16, and 18 by 18. So square size floor toms, you know, which are real big and beefy. And then the snare thing is weird for me. I don't really use wooden snares live ever.
Oh, cool.
Every once in a while I'll use a wooden snare in the studio, which I'll get to in a minute, but I have like a USA bronze 6.5 14.
Awesome.
An aluminum 6.5 14. My favorite snare in the world is I have a 3mm steel Keplinger that Greg made for me.
Cool.
Actually, he made it for me a couple of years ago, or about a year and a half ago when we started writing for this record. I really wanted a Keplinger. Like my favorite snare sounds that I've ever gotten are, I had a band called The Almost where I was a singer in, but I actually played drums on all the records. And
I remember that.
I borrowed this Keplinger to make Southern Weather with, and it was one of my favorite snare sounds I ever had. And so I called Greg's people, and they don't endorse anybody. You got to pay for the things, of course, but I really wanted a Keplinger, and they don't exist. Like you got to find them on Reverb, or you can't buy them like in the store. I don't know if you've ever heard of those drums, but they're really like utilitarian. Like mine's made out of a galvanized sewer pipe. and it has no. It's amazing, and it has no seam in it, so it wasn't welded together.
Dude, yeah.
So that's my favorite drum right now. And then I've had a great relationship with the folks at DW for the past 15 years or so. So
yeah.
I have all DW 9000 hardware.
DW.
I use 5000 single pedal, 5000 hi-hat stand. Tried the 9000s, tried all the new direct drive stuff. It's just too nice for me.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the grind. I kind of like the grind. As a kid in the 80s, I had a Camco pedal. Okay. I don't know if you know what that is.
No.
Camco is kind of a company that you should look it up when we get off the phone. Camco is kind of a company that DW kind of pioneered all their design after. If you go look at it, you'll understand. And a Camco, 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 Camco is where the 5000 design came from. Like they bought the patent.
Okay.
So when I was a kid in the 80s, I used the Camco, which is very much obviously like a 5000. So,
right.
And then for cymbals, I think I look at cymbals like paintbrushes. Like I feel like cymbals is like, it's a weird thing. Like I am Zildjian guy now. I was a Mino guy for 10 years. When I made the switch from Truth, I made the switch from everything.
Okay.
I decided that all the stuff that I grew up playing and really wanted, I decided to go after. So
nice.
Went to Zildjian. And again, like I said, I look at cymbals like paintbrushes. Like it's something on my kit that I change out a lot.
Definitely.
Because I'm like a musician drummer, meaning like, I'm not like super into the drums. Like I play the drums every day. That's my main instrument, right? But like, I love songs and like playing for the song, you know, as opposed to just being like, let's just see what rudiments I can do today. Like that's not my thing. I don't sit there and watch Gospel Chops videos and learn the licks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just not, it's not my thing. I want to play for the song. So cymbals is like my paintbrush. So, but right now for the this is the longest setup I've ever kept. And I use 17-inch Constantinople crash on the hi-hat top and a 17-inch Constantinople suspended cymbal, which is like an orchestral cymbal with a strap through it.
Yeah.
Cut the strap out.
Right.
That's my hat. And then I use a 22-inch Constantinople overhammered thin ride on the left.
Cool. Like
in a crash position. And then I use a 22-inch Renaissance Constantinople ride on all the way far right.
Nice.
And those have been there. Those three have been there forever.
Yeah.
Like for years. And then I do, in the ride position, I've got like some super top secret 24-inch Constantinoples that they don't sell that are like amazing.
Cool.
And I recorded a lot of the record with those. And then I have been on a K-Light ride. I recorded half the record with that. That's like I think that's the best cymbal in the world, the Zildjian 24-inch K-Light ride.
Yeah.
But recently, for like the last, I don't know, 8 months, 9 months, I've been using the new K-Sweet 23-inch ride.
Okay, yeah.
Which is like the old Aveda Sweet ride, but it's a K.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's brand new.
It's amazing. Well, I did. Zildjian called me close to a year ago, like right when we finished the record, to do all the press for the K line. I went to a studio in Boston and
I remember that.
But play through all it, and it was super cool. And that's when I realized, like, I remember I called Emily and I was like, I gotta have like 10 of these. I gotta play these.
Cool.
And the 16-inch hats from that line, I've kind of messed around with a lot. And then for heads. Also a paintbrush thing. I've been a coated vintage Emperor guy for years.
Yeah.
But on my concert tom kit, sometimes I'll put CS dots on them, black dots.
Cool.
It just depends on my mood. And then I've been on an Emperor X since they started making them. Like even when I was an Evans guy, 10 years ago, I was sneaking and buying Emperor X's.
Right.
It just does something to a snare that is not, you don't get the full realization of, I think the best snare head in terms of hearing the instrument itself is the control sound.
Okay. Yeah.
But that I can't play those with Underoath because they last for 2 songs and
right.
You know,
that single ply gives
so,
out
but
pretty quickly. Yeah.
but an Emperor X does something to snare drums that I love. It gives you like this natural compression, like this natural choke out of the drum. And I've never been a big fan of like the real ringy snare drum thing. I think obviously there's like a texture, time and a place for it, but for the music that I play and for what my taste is, like if I used all thin heads, I would end up with tape on everything, you know, so that the X just kind of does that for you in a way, you know, which I love. And then Vic First, super great, 2B wood tip, simple. And yeah, I think that's the rig. I use a lot of various stuff, SPDSX and a KD7 slave pedal, and depends on the set list. And the SPDSX is because in the studio, like I told you, I get real bored. Like just playing drums, especially in rock music. I'm like, everything has been done, right? And if you go on Instagram tonight, if you get off the phone and you're like, you go have a beer, your kids and wife are asleep, whatever, and you go on Instagram, there are drummers that will freak you out. They're so talented. Like there's guys doing things with drums that I'm like, what in the world? Like, is that real? You know, like kids, man, guys who are like 22 years old playing like, you know, 4 different rudiments with all 4 appendages. And I'm like, what is happening?
It's insane.
You know, or you go down the Gospel Chops rabbit hole and you're like, what in the world?
Right.
And it's impressive, right? But to me, that's just not where I want to speak from.
Sure.
I just don't care about like mathematics with drums. I want it to feel like my favorite drummer is a guy named Lee Von Helm who played in a band called The Band.
Cool.
You know, take a load off Annie, take a load for free. And he sang and played drums in the band, and his style was so simple, but there was something in it that like spoke to me as a kid and still does, you know. And I think that you can get 5 guys in a room, right? You can get 5 guys in a room and you can ask them all to play a groove in 6, you know?
Yeah.
Like give me some 6/8, just like something swung, and you're going to get 5 different results.
Right.
And one of those guys is going to speak to you though. One of those guys is going to make you feel a certain way. Like when John Coltrane would play, or when Thelonious Monk would play piano, or John Coltrane would play sax, you feel something. Like there was like something in that. And so for me, like in the studio, I want to do that. I don't want to wow you with like bombastics. I want to make you feel something, you know? So halfway through making Erase Me, I got really bored and frustrated, right? I was like, this sucks. Like I'm just playing rock drums and it's cool, but like, how do I create music and make texture? So I went to a pawn shop. Like I told you earlier, I like broken stuff, and
definitely
I bought like this 70s Premier kick drum and a 15-inch Vista Light Ludwig smoke colored floor tom.
Cool.
And then a 12-inch rack tom that was like a you know, Guitar Center special from the 80s.
Yeah.
And I put fiber skin heads on all of it.
Awesome.
Right?
Awesome. Yeah.
And most of the verses to the songs on Erase Me that sound like electronic drums, that's that drum kit.
Okay.
That I mic'd,
cool.
I mic'd like with 3 microphones. So on the kit live now, I have the SPDSX and all of that stuff with samples from that pawn shop drum kit, because
that's so cool.
I even tried, my tech and I tried for a couple of days to build this rig that was like those shitty pawn shop drums that were integrated somehow into my live setup, but it just proved to be impossible because of a second kick drum, and it was really ugly.
Right. So, yeah, I can imagine.
Our production manager was like, no. So the SPDS and all that is samples of that kit from the pawn shop.
That's so cool, man. I love hearing that. Like, I love knowing that your samples, like, because I feel like a lot of virtual drums can be overdone or over processed and even sound fake. But to know that you made your own cymbals out of, I mean, I don't know, that can inspire a lot of people to realize you don't have to go spend $1,000 on a floor tom or on a kit when you could go and make really cool sounding samples out of pieces that you picked up at a pawn shop and just threw it all together. You know, I think that's awesome.
Well, we're in a time now, dude. I mean, how old are you?
I'm 26.
Yeah, so you've been playing drums, I'm sure, for a while, and you're really into music, and it sounds like you're really into drums, and you know this better than anybody, man. Like, you don't need a drummer anymore.
Right.
Like, our job is obsolete.
Yeah, unfortunately.
in popular music today.
Definitely.
You know, like, it's you know, I don't know a nice way to say it, but like, samples are good. They're really good.
Yeah.
And even if they don't sound real, they sound cool.
Right.
You know, like, so what I've tried to do is I've tried to put like a little bit of humanity back into the sample game.
Sure.
Because there's something that can't be, there's a slap and a stink and a feeling that can't be replicated by a computer. And that's the reason why some of us still have jobs, because
definitely,
there are people that, like, there are producers that know that, you know, but there's a time and a place for the fake stuff too. But for me, with Underoath, it's always been a very cathartic kind of high energy, you know, thing. So I've always tried to keep it as human as I can. So.
Right. Definitely. Speaking of samples, have you heard of Nashville Sampling Co.?
I have, yeah. Is that the Garrett Goodwin guy?
Yeah, so Garrett's a good friend of mine, and we've had him on DrumChats for a while. He's actually kind of how DrumChats kind of started.
Nice.
And yeah, so Garrett's a good buddy of ours, and what Nashville Sampling Co. is doing is exactly what you're talking about, where they're taking real drums, real grooves, real samples, and kind of changing the face of samples, where it's like, okay, if we're adapting to a new way of music, let's do it to where it actually sounds good, you know, and just like what you did. So I think you're right. I think unfortunately, live drummers are becoming obsolete, or recording drummers are becoming obsolete. Recording drummers. But at the same time, the sampling world is creating a whole new job and a whole new sound, really. Like, you can make samples sound cool. It's not just virtual drums.
Yeah,
you know?
I actually did. If you go to AaronGillespieDrums.com, I did a sampler library 3 or 4 years ago during Paramore, and we promoted it for a while, and it did good for a minute, and then we kind of forgot about it because we all got super busy. But we were going to partner with that sound, and then we ended up not being able to do it, and you know, life got busy. But if you guys check that out too, AaronGillespieDrums.com, there's some pretty gritty samples on there as well that we did in Nashville, actually, at the Sound Emporium, which is a fantastic space with, you know, all analog gear, and we spent a couple really long days doing it. So that's something that I hate doing. Is actually sampling. It takes that's a tedious job. If you do it right, oh my God.
Yeah.
Because you got to have all those velocities. It just takes forever.
Yes.
Takes forever. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Well, I know you got. We're running up on. I know we're taking up a lot of your time, but I do want to ask.
Oh, you're good.
Just kind of nerding out on gear and stuff. Going into more of the tips. I mean, you've got a lot of drummers looking up to you, man, whether you realize it or not. But what tips, what advice would you give to a lot of drummers who, like, even whether it's guys who want to play, like tour and do exactly what you're doing, no matter what the genre is, or even if they're just wanting to build their chops, what stuff has helped you along the way get you to be the player you are, and to the path of your career that you're in? What advice would you give to aspiring drummers?
I don't know. I think that like, I feel like when I get asked this question, you know, on a pretty regular basis, I mean, I think the drum community is growing, and it's so neat to see, like, some of these guys that are out there, like, you know, especially Garrett. I don't know him. I've never met him, but he's, like, so in the drum world. You know what I mean? Like, he's constantly doing clinics and talking to people, and I feel like that I've been kind of bad at that, and there's been such a market for that, and I've been asked so many times, and I think I've ducked out of it a lot, because I feel like what made me who I am as a player, and what made me where I am now, is not drum related things. Okay. I think a lot of drummers look at like progression as a player being all based on practice and rudiments and networking, you know, and like, and I think all that stuff is great. I practice still every day. Like, you know, when I'm not on the road, I make music every day, but I feel like what's put me where I'm at is like learning to listen.
Cool.
And learning to like listen to tons of genres of music. When Underoath broke up, when I quit Underoath the first time before I played in Paramore, I got really into just studying jazz music. And I had like a jazz trio for a while called Blue Line, and we played all these bars and restaurants, and it was weird, right? Like, but it taught me to like listen to other players, because there's never a set list, and it's always a free for all, and it's a mess. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And then being in Paramore taught me like, dude, don't you ever play like a meter, like 1 meter ahead of the click track or one behind it. You got to be perfect. You're at Madison Square Garden. Don't screw up. You know what I mean? Like, you're at Red Rocks playing on a live album. If you mess up, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
And then being in Underoath taught me to be emotional and cathartic and to make people nervous. You know what I mean?
That's
like
cool.
If they were on side stage. So for me, like, I guess what's made me the player that I am is learning to really listen to music and consume music in a way that wasn't based on the technicalities of what a player was doing as far as a drummer, but to listen to music by, you know, oh, the drummer is like playing just behind the keyboard player, just behind the guitar player, and that's what makes it feel so good.
Right.
You know, when you see these like the world's greatest drummers, in my opinion, like John Bonham and Levon Helm and these guys that like do things that, you know, created, you know, modern rock drumming, like they would pull back a little bit on like a heavier section of the song, and it would feel like it would make the song feel totally different. And then when they got to the bridge section and they would be playing like something in a 4 on the floor type thing, they would speed up a couple beats and it would feel so much different. So I think for me, what's made me a player is learning to listen to music and listen to the other players that I'm playing with and kind of communicate with them on a musical level, as opposed to like, you know, sitting in my room and learning how to play a pataflop for 8 hours. Like,
right.
And that's, dude, there's a place for that. Like, there are some people there's 1,000 drummers on Instagram tonight that are better than I'll ever be at my instrument. But I'm going to make it feel better.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's kind of been my thing, is I want to make people, like, when they hear a track or they see a show, I want to make them want to do it. You know what I mean? Because it feels so good.
Right.
You know, I want to be the guy that can play a shuffle in 6 and make it feel so good that it's scary.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been my evolution. Is it's not been about like, what can I do, but how I can make it feel, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, and I think that can actually speak into a lot of different things. And what I love talking about drums so much is seeing the difference in guys. Like what you're talking about is, you know, playing what feels good, not necessarily what somebody may say is right or perfect or needs to be a certain way. And I think that's really where your craft comes in. What makes it a craft, what makes it an art form, is that you're not playing exactly what somebody else did. You're playing what you feel fits best for the song, and
right.
You know,
creation.
Exactly. And that's what I love, even talking about gear and differences in gear, is like, I mean, you can hop on forums on Reddit and hear all these different opinions on gear, for instance, and it's like, well, this guy likes Pearl, but this guy likes DW. Neither of them are right, neither of them are wrong. It's just what feels best for them, you know? And so
it's funny, man, how we base like so much of our craft, and I feel like drummers even more than any other musicians, like we like base our sound so much off of the stuff that we have, you know, like, and it's just not the case.
Yeah.
Like, it just isn't. If you want to, I mean, a great example of that is guys like Darren King, who literally plays shit, garbage. Like, I mean, that dude plays garbage drums, and the way he sounds is, he's one of my favorites right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that dude sounds so good, and he plays trash.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, garbage stuff that like the normal professional drummer would be like, no, sorry, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he'd go to the pawn shop the night before the show and buy a drum kit, and it sounds so good. And that's just proof that someone's sound is in their hands, man.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and I think like I love I love the idea of taboo when it comes to drums. Like when you play something that doesn't make sense, or play a piece, like for instance, a friend of mine, I flew out to Nashville and went and visited Garrett Goodwin at his studio, and a friend of mine and I had heard him talking. You actually know Jake Nicole. I watched an interview of you on 180. Garrett had talked with him, and he had made the comment one time that he had a popcorn snare or he used a 42 strand snare wire, and if he could put it on a popcorn snare, he would, which is totally like bogus to even think about on a 10-inch. Well, a friend of mine and I took a 42-inch snare strand and cut it down to fit a 10-inch popcorn, and I took it out there with me. We threw it on his popcorn, and it may be the only one in existence, but it sounded awesome. And to some people, it'd be like, why in the world would you put 42 strands on a 10-inch popcorn snare? It's like, well, one guy may not like it, but when you play it, it's like, yeah, it's out there. It doesn't make sense, and it's not okay, yet it sounds super cool, you know? And so, like you're saying, that guy playing trash drums, but still being that awesome.
Do you not know who Darren King is?
No, I've heard his name, and I've seen him play. I don't know that much about him, though.
You should go Google some stuff that'll scare you to death.
All right.
It'll scare. You'll be like, what?
Challenging.
He's so good.
Cool.
So good. No, I mean, is Garrett the guy that plays the drunk drum set? Is that him? Is Garrett the guy that drums are all turned the wrong direction? It's insane.
Which is funny
because. Is that him?
Which is funny because my kit is very similar to his. Yeah, our snares and our floor toms are tilted outward. Yeah, that's Garrett.
I play with my snare tilted outward, but the floor tom thing is wild.
Yeah.
You guys sit really high? Is that what it is?
I sit super low. I know he sits low, and I picked it up from him whenever we met. The way that he explained it to me was sometimes even his rack tom, which is really a floor tom, he has it also to a slight tilt outward. But the reason why he does it was he's kind of a tall dude, but whenever he plays, they feel flat to him because he's leaning forward so much so that when he's playing, they feel flat. And I was like, that's insane. So I was like, but I'm gonna try it. And I haven't gone back. Like my floor tom's tilted out, my snare's tilted out, and it feels really good to me. But that was the reason why he did that. And I was like, well, that makes sense. If it feels flat to you, then you're just adapting to what feels comfortable, you know?
See, I play my floor toms flat and my rack tom tilted towards me.
Right.
And my snare tilted out because I got the snare tilt out from watching, like, I was kind of explaining to you, I'm into jazz drummers, you know, from
That's
like the 50s.
From, yeah.
And they all did that. And the reason they did it is because it's like Elvin Jones and all those cats, they did it so they could get a rim shot while playing traditional grip.
Exactly.
That's why they did it. So the reason I did it is because I'm getting old and things are starting to hurt. And I play drums real hard, even if I'm playing.
You hit hard, man. Yeah.
But even if I'm not playing like rock and roll, it's just kind of the way that I interpret the instrument. So
right.
I found that when I tilted my snare out, I could get like a really powerful rim shot without having to like. I've broken all the fingers on my left hand from hitting the snare rim. Yeah. So I found that if I tilted it out, I could get a lot more for my money, so to speak.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So I guess like it could be the same thing with the floor toms maybe, but I sit so low, like on a DW throne, like just the round, I use the vinyl round throne, and I sit down as far as it goes, and I take the memory collar off.
Yes.
So that's how low. Here. Yeah, I sit on the ground.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't know that the floor tom would work for me, but I might give it a shot.
I love that we're talking about this because I have the DW 9000 low cedar throne, and I've taken the memory lock out, and it's all the way down, and my knees.
That's what I sit on.
Yeah, thank you. And so, like, I'm glad to talk to somebody who does the same thing. I don't know if you do this. My hi-hats are all the way up, so I've got like a 2-foot gap between my snare, which is also all the way down and tilted out. But yeah, the first time I had seen it tilted were jazz guys, and then like growing up, I was a big fan of Travis Barker, and I'd seen where he did it. I was like, why does he do that? And then I figured out, like you said, you get a way more powerful rim shot out of it. And then where a lot of guys will tilt their snare to them because they don't want to chop their sticks in half in a day, you know. But yeah, the floor tom, man, I can't really explain it, but like I just haven't gone back, like tilting it away from me, even ever so slightly. I feel like I get more of the mass of the stick across the head, where I'm not just hitting the bead on it, but I'm actually getting some of the like some of the shoulder
on it. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's like I love doing that, man. But yeah, sitting really low, I almost have to cut, like my floor tom goes down as low as it possibly can for me to be able to tilt it away. You know?
My drum tech has to cut my snare stands too. Yeah. We cut the snare stands, and then I go pretty high on the hi-hat, like maybe 18 inches between the snare and the hi-hat, but not all the way up. I don't know. That's something that changed. I used to be all the way up on a 5,000 hi-hat stand, like a three-legger. I use a three-legger 5,000. But I've kind of, the last couple of years, I'm finding myself like moving. My stuff's hurting for me now. So I'm having to and I'm real uncomfortable. Like the last 5 years, it's really weird. Actually, like when I started playing for Paramore, so even like the last 6 or 7 years, I'm really uncomfortable all the time. And I can't figure out what it is. And I've tried everything. Like I have to like reposition my butt all the time.
Yeah.
Like I can't get comfortable. And you know, during Paramore, we were playing like 2.5 hour shows, right? You know, and when Underoath first came back, we were doing Define the Great Line and Chasing Safety back to back.
Yeah.
So those were 2 hour shows, and we're just getting now into the phase where we're playing for 90 minutes, and I'm getting more comfortable. I think that as I get older, like the instrument's becoming more painful for me. Like, it's because I know it's my fault. It's because of how I've approached the instrument for so long.
Sure.
That I've like kind of injured myself, you know. So I'm trying to find ways now, and I feel like I mean, if someone told me that tilting my floor tom out would help or whatever, I think that I could. I just don't. I don't know what the answer is right now. So I'm slowly trying to like. Every day is like a thing where we're trying to figure out better ways to make me feel better. And I have a whole other set of problems where I have to sing all the time. Yeah. So like I have to pay attention, like to not the drums, you know, I'm blind in my left eye from birth. So for me, like I can't massively change things all the time because I can't see. Yeah. So I have to if I'm like playing the far right crash, I can't see the snare drum.
Oh, wow.
Unless like I put my head down, because you know you're usually looking where your lead hand is, right? So like if I'm playing like the 18-inch floor tom, like a groove on the 2 floor toms, I can't see the snare.
Yeah.
So like I have to be really careful with the changes, right? Because otherwise I'll just end up hitting myself in the crotch or the face or whatever. So yeah.
Jeez, man. Well, even like you being a singing drummer, Dave Douglas from Reliant K and I host the DrumChats podcast, which comes out now twice a month, and he also sings while he's playing. And he and I were talking about that earlier on our episode. We were talking about cymbals, but he was talking about his positioning and even the type of cymbals he plays when he's singing. And I've sang a couple times while I'm playing, but I think the first singing drummer that I ever saw was actually you in one of y'all's I forget which music video it was. But that was the first time I had ever seen, aside from Phil Collins, but seeing how you were playing and still able to keep your face glued to this mic on the side of your kit was just amazing to me. Like, how is that as hard as you're hitting and how much you articulate whenever you're playing? What is that? And even being blind in your you said your left eye, is that what
yeah, my left eye, yeah.
So how is that when you're playing? And I mean, you like again, you hit hard, you're banging really hard. How is it for you switching back over to your left to catch that mic while you're playing? Like, is it just comfortable now? Like,
it's totally normal to me now.
Cool.
It's like anything else. But at first it was weird, you know, but it's been so long that I kind of don't remember the growing pains of it. The only issue I really had is I found that like with, you know, your neck and your back and all that stuff's connected, right? Like those muscles are all connected to each other. So like, you know, if you like tweak your shoulder, how your neck will hurt, or like I found out through a chiropractor that like all of that stuff is there's like a muscle that runs the whole way that all that stuff's connected to.
Yeah.
And I've had the problems I've had have been like when I go to turn my head to the left, like I feel like I lose gas in my right arm.
Oh, geez.
And I think just because like the way that like when you turn your neck, you know, you crane your neck all the way to the left like that, you're pulling on that right arm, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's been the weirdest thing, but other than that, I'm pretty used to it in terms of like mentally and like knowing this is going to happen. I got to do this. So
cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Well, man.
Yeah.
I feel like we could talk on drums for hours. I mean, I know I could. It's been really awesome having you on here.
Yeah, thank you.
When are you guys going out on the road, if you can disclose that?
Yeah, we've been doing all of these like rock festivals.
Cool.
So like real weird, like playing with Marilyn Manson and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and then Spencer and I had been on this acoustic like radio run. And then we got back from Europe. We were in Europe for about a month. We got back a couple weeks ago. We just did like a few dates on the Final Warped Tour, which was cool. That's kind of how we got our start, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we are going we're not back to Europe. We're going to England in August to do Reading and Leeds, which has like been a lifelong dream of ours.
Dude, that's epic.
Play. Yeah, so we're super stoked on that. And Kendrick Lamar is the headliner. That'll be really fun to see.
Nice.
And then what else are we doing? We just announced, I think last Friday, we just announced a biggest tour, like our biggest headliner we've ever done.
Cool.
And that's through November and December. It actually starts in Nashville at the War Memorial. And it doesn't come through Are you in Dallas? Is that where you are?
I'm in Austin, but I'm actually moving to Nashville at the end of August.
Oh, well then you'll see the show in that. You just text me for a guest list.
Dude, you got it.
We're doing Austin too.
Sweet.
We're not doing Dallas. We did that earlier in the year.
Okay.
So, and then we go to Australia, I think, at some point early next year. That's not announced. I don't know anything about it, to be honest with you.
Okay.
So yeah, man, just more touring and kind of working Erase Me, you know?
Yeah.
So we've, you know, it's been lots of radio festivals and stuff like that. So, and then I'm getting married in September, which is really exciting.
Congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. So, you know, just the dribble, man, just the thing, traveling and playing music. It's a Groundhog Day, you know. So
when are you guys going to be out in Nashville?
I don't know. You can go look on the internet.
I'll go check.
I couldn't tell you the exact date. It's the first date of our tour, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. It's at the War Memorial Auditorium, and I don't know. Dude, you're a bold soul moving to Nashville's nuts right now, dude.
Yeah,
you couldn't give me a place to live in Nashville. I used to love. My mom is from Chattanooga, so I grew up.
On.
Going to Nashville, you know, and Nashville 5 years ago to what it is today is like it's a different city, man. It's crazy right now.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine. You can't find where are you going to live, dude? You can't get a place to live there.
One of my cousins is out there, and I'm gonna go crash with him for a little bit. Then I've got some friends who live around and stuff. So we'll see what happens. We're gonna go out there and rough it and see what happens.
All my friends moved to Nashville. I have friends that moved from New York and LA to Nashville.
Oh wow.
Like I mean, it is like that place sucks now. Dude, it's like I'm not a city person.
Sure.
So I can't imagine with how crowded it is there. But I mean, dude, if you're trying to play and network, that's the place to go.
And that's the goal, man. Like honestly, it was just one of those things. It's like I need to go before I don't, and so I'm gonna go out there. And
I mean, if you're single and young, I mean, I have a really good friend. He plays. I gave him his first drum lessons when he was a kid, actually, and now he's like the most ripping drummer. Cool. His name's Connor Dennis. And he plays for that band Beartooth now.
Yeah, I know Beartooth.
And
that's cool.
He is so good, like freaky good drummer.
That's cool. Man.
And he moved to Nashville. He's from Florida, where we're from as well. And he just left. He just left home, went to Nashville, bought a house, like way out in the country where he could afford it, you know. And yeah, he's crushing it, dude. Like playing country gigs and you know doing the Nashville thing. So good for you, man. Good luck.
Man. Appreciate it, dude. Yeah, well, it's been great having you on. So everybody listening,
thank you, buddy.
You guys can go check out our Instagram, drumchats.com, and now we'll have Aaron on our website. You'll see all of his links so we can connect you with him, and make sure you hit that subscribe button. And Aaron, thanks for chatting with us, man. And I'll hit you up out in Nashville. Hopefully catch up with you guys out there.
Yeah, appreciate it, man. Have a great evening.
All right, you too, bud.
Cheers.
You got the